Hey guys, I'm Mark. A lot of you have asked me, how did I shoot my 3 camera comparison video? So today I'm going to run you through my rig. This is the Blackmagic, this is the E2, and this is the GH5s. And I have 3 very similar lenses on here. These are all Canon FD 35mm tilt shift lenses. Why these lenses? Well, I have access to 3 of these lenses. That's why I'm using these lenses. I'm not using any of the tilt and shift on here. That way I don't compromise the image quality at all. Just straightforward, these are 35 mils, so on these cameras they end up being a 70mm lens effectively. So I bought this bar on Amazon. It's just a basic photography bar. It's about 14 inches wide, and it was wide enough to allow me to mount all 3 cameras just screwed straight on. The E2 is mounted to the plate that's holding the whole thing together. But yeah, they're just screwed on, and it's kind of tight, but it worked out really well. If I turn it this way, you can see that they are fairly lined up in this plane as far as the height from the bar. You can actually see that difference on the video. Sometimes one shot would be a little higher than the other one. It's just because of this physical height difference. As far as the left to right, this way, I would actually have to turn the cameras just a little bit so that they're looking at roughly the same thing. They have a slightly different perspective, but it's not a big deal. You really can't do a whole lot about that. I could actually use the shift on these to shift the image over. If you get too far to the end of either one of those, they can start to get soft around the edges. I'll talk briefly about my power. I've got the Tierlock Wales, I think that's how you say his name, Tierlock Wales Battbox. This holds 4 18650 batteries. They're lithium polymer, lithium something or others. And it also holds the Samsung T5 drive in a nice little 3D printed case. It's got the power cable and the SSD cable that run around and plug into the camera on the side. So that's a nice little convenient power solution. The E2, I'm just using some Sony MPF style battery on the back. And I've got the Atomos Ninja V on top with the same kind of battery, just for monitoring, since the screen on the E2 is just a tiny little screen, more for the menu than anything. For the GH5s, I just used the built-in battery down under here, so I had to actually spin this on its mount to get to the battery, but it wasn't a big deal. The GH5s has a waveform monitor built in, which is really nice. I get a waveform monitor on my Ninja V for my E2. This guy doesn't. The Blackmagic just has a histogram, which isn't so great for exposure, so I would periodically plug in the Ninja V into the Blackmagic just so I can get the exposure set right. As far as setting exposure, if you've watched my video, you know that these cameras have kind of different ideas of what ISO should be. Right now, with the current firmware, the E2 at 160 is roughly equivalent to these two at ISO 400. So they're just at different levels. It doesn't really mean anything. They have, the same kind of capabilities of exposure. They just have different relative numbers for ISO. I had the lenses mostly set at the same aperture, either like f2.8 or f4. So fairly wide open. And then I had some variable ND in the front that I would use to balance out the exposure. They were roughly about the same setting. It was really all about using the waveform monitors to get the exposure where it should be. So right in the middle there where everything's happy. I'm not clipping too much, I'm not crushing too much. So without going on and on, that's basically my setup. Having it all in one thing, I could do these kind of movements for testing rolling shutter. It was really convenient. It is a little heavy, but it was worth it. It was kind of fun to do. It's a challenge though, I tell you what, shooting just one camera is hard enough. Try shooting with 3 cameras that are all different, with different controls and different places where they need to be. Like for example, when I shot 4K 60 with the GH5s, I know that I want to shoot in Cinelike D because Vlog has banding at 8-bit. This falls down to 8-bit at 60 frames. So I had to change the settings on this camera depending on what I was doing, what frame rate I was at. This guy's no problem. I mostly shot RAW, a little bit of ProRes, and that's really easy. With RAW, I mean, you're either on the low ISO setting or the high ISO setting. It doesn't really matter where you are in between because you can change it in post. This guy, not too hard to set up. It was easy with the Ninja. This is a great monitor. Gave me really great exposure metering, and I knew where to set the exposure at. So there we have it, my 3 camera setup. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Please remember to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already, and hit that little notification icon if you want to know when I post my next video.